Good evening. We'll call to order the regular meeting of this Brandon Planning Commission for Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. The first item will be roll call, and all the commissioners are here. We can't say that with Commissioner Hill?
Kate did not sign in.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. We were going to have one commissioner signing in through Teams, but she has not signed in, so we have one regret then. The second will be the adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion for that? Motion, Commissioner Major, and a seconder, Commissioner Hobson. All those in favor of the agenda? It's carried.
I wasn't here, so I can't vote on it.
No, it's the agenda. It's today's agenda, not the minutes.
Agenda. Yes, yes.
So that is. So then, take a motion to confirm the minutes from the last meeting. Commissioner Hobson, seconder Commissioner Mayer, and myself were the councillors who were present. So all those, any changes to, sorry, before I ask the question, any changes or comments on the minutes? All right, all those in favor of adopting the minutes? So that's carried with one abstention. Good, we'll move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting. We are still mid-COVID, so we do have...
Actually, Kate is here. She just signed in as a different person.
Okay, so can we count her as present?
She's in.
So just so everyone knows, then we do have a commissioner who'll be voting and attending at a distance. So we're going to go through the items the administration will present. We will look if there's an applicant to have the applicant speak as well. We'll then entertain comments from people in favor of the application, people who are opposed to the application, and people who are just attending for information purposes. We do like to keep the meetings moving, so if you address your comments to me, not to engage with each other in the audience or to try to engage directly with one of the commissioners, we will give you time to express the concerns you may have or the support you may wish to put forward, though we do ask you to try to keep those to about 5 minutes and try not to repeat the point that the previous speaker made in detail. And then once we close the public hearing, we will then have our own discussion prior to making a recommendation. And during that time, it will just be the commissioners who are speaking. So with that, Mr. Mock.
Technical issues. Give us a moment, please. Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chair. So yes, we do have two items tonight. The first item is with respect to the Southwest Brandon Secondary Plan update. So the outline in red you see here in the map before you represents the Southwest Brandon Secondary Plan area. That boundary remains unchanged today. It mostly includes the two quarter sections that the city annexed in 2012 north of Patricia Avenue on both sides of 34th Street, as well as with some smaller property holdings to the north and east of these quarter sections. The purpose of this latest round of updates this year is mainly to deal with consistent terminology and policies across all Greenfield secondary plans. So that's the Southwest tonight, the Southeast Brandon, which came to the Planning Commission earlier this year, and also the North Brandon Gateway secondary plan, which has also been around for a few years. Both with respect to land use, infrastructure, and green spaces. With respect to land use, we want to allow for a limited flexibility of certain developments consistent with the other two secondary plans. For example, clarifying where mixed use or residential moderate density areas can go in the secondary plan area, such as it has to be along either collector or arterial streets. There was not that clarity in the previous versions. With respect to infrastructure, some initial work has been done that led to the Southeast Brandon secondary plan, but some of the work related to that also affects the Southwest Brandon secondary plan area, and so some of the infrastructure, for example, the sanitary sewer services, for example, in order to serve Southwest, it actually has to travel through the Southeast secondary plan area. So there were some relationships between these two areas. And with respect to green space, we're just updating terminology in light of the current green space master plan, which is from 2015. This secondary plan was originally adopted in 2014, so it was a little bit behind. And another reason why we have the secondary plan update today is there's a new Francophone school being proposed in the east end of the area along Maryland Avenue, and that will be addressed in the second item later this evening. And just to clarify, this is a new school under the Manitoba Francophone School District, the District Scolaire Franco-Manitobain. This is not related to Brennan School Division at all. So again, this is the land use map. So as you can see, the significant changes, let me see if I can get the cursor to show up, is really in the eastern area with the land dealing with the proposed Francophone school site, which again we'll go through tonight. Also proposing a future mixed-use area in the corner there. Part of the reason is that area will be isolated from the future residential areas to the south and west of that particular site, and it's already sitting next to existing commercial properties along Currie Boulevard. It's also on a collector street, so it makes sense to be on a more active street. With respect, I've already touched base on infrastructure, so I will not belabor that. Last slide for this one. We did receive, as of the writing of this report, 4 letters of objection to the update, and they were all concerned about traffic on Durham Drive, and they were asking for an extension of Maryland Avenue to 34th Street. So just for everyone's information, the city administration did propose extending Maryland Avenue westwards to 34th Street in 2016 when we were dealing with a development proposal on the south side of Maryland in the what's now known as Bellafield neighborhood. However, due to objections raised at that time by various parties, including the developer and some residents north of Maryland Avenue, the city administration, under direction of City Council, commissioned a traffic study to verify the need of the Maryland Avenue extension. So prior to the traffic study, city administration recognized that there was a need for connectivity purposes to extend Maryland Avenue. However, based on the traffic study that we commissioned in 2017, based on traffic volumes alone, the study did not demonstrate a need to extend Maryland Avenue, and therefore city administration did not pursue this proposed extension, and therefore we did not obtain any contributions to extend Maryland Avenue. All that said, even if there was a desire by council to, say, require us to extend Maryland Avenue, we cannot do it right away. One of the big concerns right now is that we do not own all the land necessary to extend Maryland Avenue right of way all the way to 34th Street. We are currently wanting to maintain flexibility as land gets developed to the west, west of Marcus Place, for example. City administration will continue acquiring lands during the subdivision process to allow for, at the very least, a greenway, which is identified in the secondary plan. And then if, in the long term, it turns out that an extension of the roadway itself is necessary, then we will have the land available as an option in the future. And I will finish off by saying that since there is a desire from residents to better understand why city administration and council ended up not pursuing the extension of Maryland Avenue, we administration would be open to bringing this matter forward to, for example, a future ward meeting if the councillor so desires. With that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions for administration at this point? Commissioner Meiser.
Through the chair to Mr. Mock, the properties on 34th Street, fronting onto 34th Street, that are not owned by the developer to the south of Maryland or the city. Approximately what depth are they? Do you know?
Through the chair of the commission, Measure, if we're talking about east-west, we are talking about 3 old city blocks worth of land. So there was an old grid layout there. So if that gives you an idea, I don't have the exact measurement.
That's fine. That's good. Thank you very much.
Other questions from the commissioners?
Through the chair, with the school being built there, well, if it is going to be built there, would you widen Maryland at all?
Through the chair to Commissioner Anderson, that's a very good question. In the next item, one of the things that we are recommending is that the proponent commission a traffic impact study, and any recommendations in terms of improvements, we will require them to make those improvements. So, playing the cat out of the bag early, one thing that before the traffic study comes out, we are going to require a crosswalk there because the school's going to be on the south side, whereas the trail's on the north side. But any other improvements, for example, if they require turning lanes, intersection improvements, again, the traffic study will direct that, and we will require them to follow those recommendations.
Thank you.
I will ask, Commissioner Hobson, do you have anything to ask at this stage? I have a couple of questions that are more, I suppose in a way, procedural, but we are hearing for the bylaw that's making specific changes to the Southwest Plan. And as such, we're hearing commentary on those issues. But this is not a reopening of the entire Southwest Plan, like a wholesale reopening of the plan. We are considering recommending to council these specific changes that are included in this bylaw.
It's safe to say, Mr. Chair, that our scope was only limited to what we are presenting tonight, and so that is what we're recommending that Planning Commission bring forward to council. Now, council, since you're asking about procedural, they also have the prerogative, if they feel it's necessary, they can direct city administration to, in the future, to direct them to make further changes to the secondary plan. And if that is the case, then it will come back before you in due process as well.
Right. Thank you. Just my commissioners are familiar with this, but again, this is a situation with the bylaw where we are serving as the eyes and ears for council and hosting the commentary and making a recommendation. But of course, we aren't deciding the way we do with a variation or a conditional use. It's not our final decision. It's our recommendation to council. So just remind my colleagues of that. All right, we may call you back, of course, at the end. We don't have an applicant per se because it is the city applying, so we'd move forward to...
Kate has no questions as well.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Thank you for that. I should write her name in the corner here so I can remember that she's...
What was that?
Commissioner Hill.
Yes. Oh, no, you don't have to put it to her. She has no questions.
Oh, okay.
So then I would call on those who may have comments to make in favor of the application. It might be easier if I just call people up rather than having them randomly stand up. So Bob Patterson, you indicated here that you were in favor of the application.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak this evening. My perspective is one of a personal interest. My comments will be brief. They'll be factual. They're not going to be legal. My wife and I live at 80 Durham Drive. I just wanted to offer some perspective from our standpoint, but I do so from the perspective of fortunate that there's a lot of good people in this room, both in your capacities as commissioners, city staff. There's a number of neighbors, a couple of whom are excellent neighbors that are here today. They may have a different perspective than I, so may the city councillor for my ward, former hockey coach of mine. Again, I think of Aretha Franklin and her song R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Well, I respect them. I hope they respect me. I may have a different slant on things. And quite frankly, my thoughts are this. The objections that are being raised as it relates to traffic concerns on Durham Drive and contemplation of extending Maryland to 34th Street, they're certainly valid points. My thought and suggestion, though, would be that it is something that is more appropriate for a ward meeting, not to impose on the councillor's busy schedule, but I think that would be an appropriate place to do so. Mr. Chair has already alluded to a point that I was going to make, and that is there's very limited focus of proposed amendments that you have before you to the Southwest Secondary Plan this evening. Extending Maryland isn't one of those points. And as Mr. Mock has noted, extension of Maryland to 34th Street was not included when the Southwest Secondary Plan was adopted by Council on April 22nd of 2014, so over 7 years ago. It wasn't contemplated then. There has been development subsequent. Mr. Burgess, of course, property nearby, and in Brookwood, of course, and as well in Bellafield. One of the initial stages in the first stage of development of Bellafield contemplated, and that's what Mr. Mock has indicated, looking at that issue again, should there be an extension of Maryland Avenue? There was opposition from the developer, there was opposition from some residents, and as a result, it was put to a traffic study. The traffic study determined that at that point in time, it wasn't required. And there have been amendments made to this plan subsequent. In 2018, there were some amendments made. Again, the extension wasn't included at that time. So while the participation of residents is encouraged, and that's what we want to hear, and there's going to be differing views, and that's how you can come to a good solution, I think. At this point in time, the objections submitted concern an issue which isn't part of the amendment that's before you today. Now, secondly, there was public outreach previously, and I say that because I know it's mentioned in the letters that you have before you that some of the residents were of the view, geez, if I had known this, I would have participated. And things happen, and I'll be the first to say we all make mistakes, we have to be accountable, but there was notice in the Brandon Sun, there was notice online, there was plenty of public outreach, both as it relates to the adoption and the enactment of the secondary plan, any developments, Mr. Burgess's development, same with Bellafield, and even subsequent amendments to the Southwest Secondary Plan. I've been in council here a couple of occasions listening to what happened. I can count probably 3 meetings at Westridge Community Center, hosted by the city, hosted by Mr. Burgess or others. So there have been opportunities for folks to give their views. Extending Maryland isn't that simple. And I'm going to suggest to you, and I'm not here to advocate for any of the developers. Mr. Burgess, being a capable lawyer, can certainly do so for his developments. But I think it's reasonable to assume that the most northerly portion of the Bellafield development has now been designed in its westerly phase based on the fact that there isn't going to be a road, an extension of Maryland out to 34th Street. What's been contemplated for at least 7 years now is a multi-use trail. And if you were just to take a drive in that area, the homes now will back pretty close to that right-of-way. There's maybe room for a trail, multi-use trail for biking, for walking. To fit a road in there might be tight, and it might involve acquisition of other lands. And that leads you to a further issue. One of your housekeeping changes today is to change the definition of a natural area to an environmental green space, that definition. But you have a natural area right in the middle of this right-of-way. Now, some people may say, well, it's not an expansive area. But suffice to say that woodlot's been there for a number of years. It serves as a drainage retention pond in the spring. There's always lots of water there from overland drainage. There's plenty of wildlife. And the other factor is the secondary plan, as it now says and now reads, speaks to prohibiting interference with green space, natural areas. So if there was to be a road punched through there, that's exactly what's going to happen. I certainly appreciate the comments because we live on Durham Drive as well, and I'll get to this in a moment. There has to be something done, I believe, to address the traffic concerns. It can be done at a meeting, I hope with residents, facilitated by the city. But moving one problem perhaps to another problem doesn't necessarily solve the problem. A couple of the folks that wrote letters said we enjoy the privacy of our larger backyards. Commissioner Major made reference to that in his question of Mr. Mock, because the folks on 34th Street do have far larger backyards than normal. Well, we also have privacy where we live on the southwest corner of Durham Drive. Out behind us is a natural area. If that's changed and there's now a road put in there that runs from 34th straight to 18th with maybe a stop sign at 26th, now that's going to be a busy road with lighting and a whole bunch more activity that we've never had before. So in one sense, I can see why certain residents are saying we don't want anything that may affect what we've got now. And I get that. That's understandable. I would hope they'd understand that we as well have the same concern. And that leads me to my final point. I see a public road as being a final option because it does involve a considerable cost. You've got the Bellafield development saying we don't believe we need this road because we're constructing our own road out to 34th Street in the next phase of Bellafield, and it will connect. You've also got a private landowner who hasn't developed her land. And as much as she may benefit from a road, she hasn't developed, and I can't speak for her and I won't speak for her, but I doubt she wants to put any money on the table towards a road either. And then the city is faced with a situation where does it encounter that cost solely? So those are considerations. And I'm not convinced, with respect, that just because Maryland's opened, if I'm traveling from Brookwood heading east and I come to the intersection of 34th and Aberdeen, that I'm now going to veer to the south and then turn left and head east on Maryland. I think convenience, if I can still get through on Durham Drive, I'm just going to cross that road and keep going. And that's what leads me to my final points, and I thank you for your indulgence. Why don't we look at the simple options first, and then if we can't achieve anything there, then look at the public road for Maryland being extended. Has the city looked at? Could it look at? I know Mr. Sam, first name, and I think it's
Van Heusen, yeah.
Correct, thank you. Has the city looked at installing through a traffic sign? Perhaps at Durham and Prelude Bay or Durham and Marquee Drive? That would slow the traffic down. At least one sign, perhaps two stops. I think that would be a key. Number two, local traffic only signs were put up at one time, but they have to be enforced. It can be enforced. I think you may hear from an esteemed former councillor, member of the legislature. I think an idea he had suggested at one time was make Aberdeen an exit only. You can't come into Durham Drive from 34th. It's only an exit. That could deal with traffic flow. Police can enforce the truck route bylaw and traffic bylaw. One resident made mention of, I don't know what section 54 is of the traffic bylaw, and I phoned City Hall and they didn't know either. Well, that's the truck route provisions in the traffic bylaw, and there can be a priority made to enforce that. Finally,
Thank you.
part of the problem is also perhaps construction, understandably, meet with the developers. Say, here's the issue going on, what can we do to all work together so that you can build the properties that you're building in an existing area, but we can all cooperate and facilitate reasonable expectations of traffic on Durham Drive. It is all about respect, and I submit that if we look at those issues first and then find you can't make a meaningful improvement or change, well then look at the bigger ticket items such as the road. I know that's technically not what's before you today, but because there's been so much focus on that through members of the public. And I suspect because Mr. Smith, being an eloquent speaker, because he's been in this chamber and in the legislature before, he's going to stand and make some comments I know that raise concerns. I don't dismiss those concerns. I believe there has to be better respect, slower speeds, and you slow the folks down with the greatest respect. One stop sign put somewhere along there. There's no stop sign from 34th all the way over to 26th. That's a long stretch in a residential area. I thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions? No. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Again, just sort of going through the list here, we don't have anyone else who's ticked off in favor, and the next name is Scott Smith. And Val Smith, you're both presenting at the same.
Oh, okay.
5 copies for the chairperson. Along with thanks, Peter.
Right.
Is it okay if I close the laptop to put my?
Thank you.
No, that's our team's meeting. One of our commissioners is connecting through us right now.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Want to state your name for our record, and then you can begin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My name is Scott Smith. I'm a resident of Parkdale Heights, 121 Durham Drive. I've been there approximately 24 years. And unfortunately, tonight I will be speaking against the proposed application for amendments to Southwest Secondary Plan bylaw, initially 7080, now bylaw 7124, and bylaw proposed is 7310, I believe. It's been fantastic to have the information that we've got relayed from Mr. Monk. Thank you very much for forwarding information in the last couple of weeks to get the information that we've had. But in terms of timeline, I've got about an 8-minute presentation or 9-minute presentation, and I'll try to do the Reader's Digest versions. I'll stick to my notes and relay what some of my concerns are. Be clear, I am not opposed to the majority of the amendments that are being proposed. Certainly, many of them are fine amendments and good public planning. Part of the amendments that I do have a focus on is Schedule 5, the addition of Schedule 5 now in the new amendment, which is, we could probably put it up, I'm not sure, or I've got it in my package for you as well, where we've got green space changes, and we've certainly got road, collector road condition changes as well in the development plan. The safety of the current residents, certainly residing in Parkdale, has resulted in an incredible increase in flow of traffic, specifically regarding the homes along Durham Drive, the short stub of Aberdeen Avenue to Durham Drive, and Marquis Drive. You can see the degradation and the pounding that the roads are taking. In fact, coming here tonight, they've got the corner of 26th Street closed right off for construction of Maryland Avenue because they're redoing the intersection there and the road's in poor shape. Marquis Drive is to the point of not allowing any heavy vehicles down it. And the small stretch of Aberdeen Avenue is chunks of pavement coming out because of the heavy traffic flow. I'd refer you to Schedule E, if we can, the package that I put out. Southwest Brandon Transportation Plan, which depicts Maryland Avenue no longer slated for completion to 34th Street, which previously was the intent of the developers in their plan titled Downey Lands back in 2014. In fact, January 28th, there was a meeting at Westridge Community Center, 2015, with a plan submitted to the City of Brandon February 5th, 2015. Unfortunately, the residents along Durham Drive, and certainly up to the Aberdeen area, were not notified of the public meeting as they were considered to be outside the 100 meters of notice. At some point in time, the developers planned to complete Maryland Avenue from 26th Street to 34th Street in order to provide the proper transportation access to the area was changed. In fact, at one time, 34th Street and Maryland Avenue was considered a gateway per bylaw 7080. Under 5.1, the urban design, and 5.3, the gateway policies, 5-3-2, I'm not aware of how this decision came about. In the substantiation of I have the attached, if you would refer to figures 1 and 2 from the Downey Lands Plan, which now is Bellafield. In substantiation of the developer's intent to have Maryland Avenue completed from 26th Street to 34th Street with a main egress off Maryland Avenue heading into what's now known as Durlego Drive in the area of Bellafield, which is approximately 30th Street. So it would be Maryland and 30th Street. It does continue on down to 31st Street, just 31 and a half Street on Maryland Avenue with hard pack because of the development that's going in on the Marquis Drive development. Marquis Drive development that is straight north of Bella. Considering the ongoing development of the properties requiring west-east access, my question is this. Why is the previous planned completion of Maryland Avenue from 26th to 34th not depicted in the future development plan, as it now runs 18th Street to 31st Street and then dead ends? There is space, there is land for the hydro line and the hydro line right away, and a street to be built all the way to 34th Street. In fact, if you come off 34th Street, they've got an ingress-egress that's been there for years where Maryland Avenue would come out. Brookwood is developed up to that point, and Bella, Hanlon Drive, backing almost onto 34th Street, is a loop street that has no ingress-egress other than what I've described on Durlego Drive. As the Brookwood area has been developed and grown, Durham Drive in particular has become the route of choice for traffic coming and going west of 34th Street. With the addition of Bellafield, traffic has once again increased. With not only commuters, but also with the heavy trucks, the heavy equipment that have no other access out of Brookwood to go back and forth into Bella, with their only access being Durlego Drive off Marquis Crescent. Heavy equipment utilized and the amount of transport and tractor trailers and heavy equipment should not be for local streets. This is only start of phase 2 for Bella and phase 2 for the new development off Lakewood Drive for Birchwood Developments. There was pylons set up this summer along Durham Drive as the streets became increasingly worn. There was pylons, signage, and signs recommending that no one take Durham Drive as a route to get to 26th Street. It became very inefficient and very ineffective as drivers soon began to navigate around them and continue the heavy traffic. Pylons placed by the city still exist on Marquis Drive, and signage still exists on Marquis Drive. Coming down here tonight, there is one access to get into the entire area of Bellafield. 26th Street is blocked off, and Maryland Avenue, and will be for some period of time, leading all traffic down Durham Drive in entirety. The entrance to Bella comes into a small street that is Marquis Drive. It's residential homes. Every home has a driveway backing out onto the street. Unlike Maryland Avenue, unlike Richmond Avenue, unlike many of the heavy flow traffic areas that go east and west all across Brandon with good planning. The roads of Marquis have been destroyed by the heavy traffic to the point requiring major construction, as has Aberdeen Avenue. If you look at, we'll get to the pictures in a minute. It'll show pictures as 1,000 words, and I've placed pictures 1 to 10 just to show what a collector street developed in Brookwood has been, with a center meridian of 5 meters, a street going east and west, both with one-way being about 13 meters wide each, with sidewalks on both sides for pedestrian traffic, pouring into what Aberdeen Avenue is, a 12-meter wide street with one curb on the side and a steep ditch on the other side, coming into a residential neighborhood. Schedule E identifies a proposed collector street, which is so far south, it will not alleviate any of the density of traffic from Lakewood Drive in Brookwood to Aberdeen Avenue, flowing onto Durham, to 26th Street, and then eastward again to Maryland Avenue. Although we're in favor of development, and certainly I haven't spoken to anyone in my area or the street that isn't, the new school, which we're very happy to see that you'll be dealing with again tonight, is a good addition into the community. But certainly we're going to see heavier traffic with 250 students not far down the road on Maryland Avenue with staff of 50 or 60, and the expanding Brookwood, which, if you take into context, is approximately 5,000 people in the new development. Bella will be approximately, I believe I put in my information that I handed out, anywhere between 2,100 and 4,000 people, with 1,700 homes in Bella and close to the same in Brookwood, with no access whatsoever until this collector street that is in Schedule E, which is the last phase of the development of both Brookwood and Bella, which would be literally years down the road. As a picture is, it says 1,000 words. As an illustration, I just walk you through very quickly just the pictures that I've given to you and the photographs that I've given you, just to show the difference in streets on what is now being proposed as a collector street. And I do agree with the changes in the wording for collector streets. Durham Drive should not be notified as a collector street. You've got picture 1 showing 34th Street, Lakeview, going east into Aberdeen Avenue. Aberdeen Avenue, as I'd mentioned, on the right-hand side is a steep ditch. It goes into a gully, like an old farm drainage ditch. On the other side, there's one curb, and thankfully a walking path. You can see the collector street, which should be an intended collector street, going into that area. The next picture, number 2, is just a closer view of it. It's just a mirror image reverse view on the next 2 pictures, looking down at the damage being done to Aberdeen Avenue. And going to picture 5, we can see going off Durham Drive onto Marquis, which is going south into the Bellafield. The damage down that street is to the point of light motor vehicles not being able to go down without getting close to experiencing damage. The next picture again shows the damage going down, going into Bella, and then Bellafield. The other is the picture 8 is just a reversal coming back the other way, coming into a Durham Drive and into a residential area, a stop sign, and a street right in the front. The 10th picture is the intersection of Maryland Avenue and 26th Street, where the development is starting. There's proposed to be a roundabout put in there and a correction of the street alignment, which is fantastic. That's something everybody would like to see. There's been a number of accidents there, and it's quite a dangerous accident with a two-way stop and traffic that's going west, not stopping, but that's a whole other matter. The one picture I would like you to take note is number 11. Number 11 is looking out of Bellafield and looking to a new development that's going in, the Marquis development, which is in behind Mr. Patterson's home that they're starting to develop in through that area. There is a connector street that would be down about a block and a half from that is proposed to go into Durham Drive. So I would assume that it's down to 31st Street, Maryland Avenue. Following the hydro pole, as you can see at the third hydro pole, that is a new development that's going in there. On the other side, on Bellafield, the entire design is all backed out to the road system, to the Maryland Avenue, and is really 2.5 blocks from 34th Street. Number 12 is the area where you would be looking down that hydro pole line in number 11. It's got on the right-hand side, you can see a ingress egress that would be Maryland Avenue that's been there for years, planned for years. And on the left-hand side, you can see Brookwood that's extended out to that and now past where Maryland Avenue would be. The final picture is looking south, or northwest, of Hanlon Drive. You can see out the back where the lot almost goes to 34th Street. The second hydro pole is actually at 34th Street, and again, Brookwood developing there. Just in conclusion, Mr. Chair, Brookwood and Bellafield developments are undoubtedly the largest scale developments combined in the city of Brandon, with thousands of building lots and a population estimated of the two between 5,000 and 7,500 people. As you can identify in the area maps provided, these two developments require adequate roadways, and only connections that present now are Lakeview Drive out of Brookwood, into Aberdeen Avenue, onto Durham Drive, to Marquee Crescent, and into Bella, what now is known as Durlego Drive. Along with the regular household commuters, again, I'd mentioned the heavy equipment. I would also like to stress the Parkdale Park is one of the largest parks along Durham Drive in the southwest region and is well utilized, not only by vehicles, but by pedestrians and an increasing amount of cyclists. When you see the area that is being traveled by the amount of cars that we're having, you can see the narrow roads that are in the residential area, and seeing it in more families than ever, the high volume of traffic being experienced in the streets, not designed to handle it, and the increased activity of pedestrians and children is a receipt for disaster. Completion of Maryland Avenue to 34th Street should be considered in Schedule 5, and the park area that's identified on Schedule 5 should be opposed. It should be a mandatory requirement for the safety and well-being of the pedestrians, and I would compel you to make these amendments to the proposed bylaw being presented. As we've had mentioned by other neighbors in the area, people that have been there for quite some time, you can't blame anyone in any of the other developments for taking a shortcut. I think we all took the shortcut when we were riding our bike to school and whipped across someone's lawn and went by the shortest route. But if you take a look at good planning of large-scale developments, all the way from Victoria Avenue down to Park Avenue, down to Richmond Avenue, and then the half mile again at Maryland, and then a half mile again at Patricia, when you've got all the services in one end of town and you've got all the residents in the other end of town, you can't blame them for taking the easiest route of access. If in fact you had people coming out of Brookwood, many people will take the shortest route and the highest speed possible. You haven't got one ingress-egress house right from 34th Street to 18th Street on Maryland Avenue. Oh, I stand corrected. Bob has one house, one property that has a little barn along the side of Maryland at about 20th Street. That is the only ingress-egress of residential property in that entire area. If you take 42nd Street on Richmond Avenue right to 26th Street, there's one house with an ingress-egress of a residential home coming out onto a property. It's similar on Victoria Avenue and all the high-volume streets that go through East and West and Brandon. So I see no reason not to consider, because of the timeline, number one, of 10 years down the road and residents having this traffic flow go through an area that it shouldn't be going through, looking seriously at amendments to finish 3 blocks in Maryland Avenue to have the proper access. I thank you for your time and letting me present my views on Schedule E, on the amended changes on the neighborhood plan, and I'm concluded.
Thank you. Commissioners, any points of clarification?
I have one.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Through the chair to the applicant. You mentioned, I'm looking specifically at picture number 13, and the last sentence says Hydro Line follows where Maryland would extend to 34th Street. I'm not familiar enough with that area or that situation. Do you know, is that hydro line on hydro property or is it on an easement situation?
You know, hydro lines usually take the easement and allow them access. I can't say whether from 32nd Street to 34th Street, whether that is property that's owned by others. Considering that, the City of Brandon did not have the access that we see in Schedule 5, where they've got it going into Brookwood and into Bella Field. But they certainly did take the land from the property owner for the street in that area. It wouldn't be that much different to come to a fair settlement that we see all the time if, in fact, there is a property owner along the hydro line that we needed access gained by the city or developers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming forward.
Kate did not have any questions.
Thank you very much for all being here on such a beautiful night and giving me the time.
I also have Val Smith from the same address. Are you also raising different points? Excellent, thank you. My glasses on, sorry. Make sure I can read this one. Sean Berry from Wascana Drive. Do you have a question to raise? You've ticked off for information. You're simply just looking for that. Okay, thank you. 4B. Oh, and these last two are for the, for a John Burgess. Are you wishing to make comment, Mr. Burgess?
No, I'm not good, Sean. I'm just here to observe. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, do you wish to ask any questions of administration now that we've heard these concerns? And I'll warn you that I will, so I don't know if you want to go to the podium or...
Thank you for the heads up, Mr. Chair.
No? Okay.
Since they're dealing with other technical issues there, if it's all right, I'll just answer from my chair here.
Sure. Other commissioners, do you have any questions for administration first before I launch in on them? No. All right. Well, I do hear the concerns that are being raised around largely the traffic and the Maryland versus Durham Drive issue. Is the current Southwest plan, again, recognizing that we're only dealing with the specific updates, but in general, does the Southwest plan reduce our future choices for Maryland? Is this locking out future options?
Mr. Chair, no. Just because it's not in the plan today does not mean that we cannot have an extension to Maryland Avenue in the future. If, as one of the presenters mentioned tonight, yes, things change over time, and if circumstances do change yet again, that provides evidence warranting an extension at Maryland Avenue, then the city administration will make that recommendation accordingly. But based on the information we have to date, that is not the case.
And then, if that was the case, if in the future we'd be making a change to the Southwest plan to show Maryland going through, we'd be going through the same process again. There would be a bylaw to amend the Southwest plan. There would be hearings.
Correct, Mr. Chair. Yes, any amendments to the secondary plan is a bylaw amendment process, and that has to go through the public hearing process that we are going through tonight as well, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, if you have no other questions for administration. Yep, Commissioner Anderson.
Through the chair, I'm just going to ask, just to make sure I'm clear from Andrew, there is no land to extend Maryland. right?
We do not have sufficient width to extend Maryland right now. Maryland Avenue, there is a strip of land that exists from a 1912 plan of subdivision, I just confirmed that, that is only 40 feet wide. Our standards require collector street rights-of-way, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, needs to be at least 60 or 66 feet wide.
20 meters.
20 meters, right. So going to Imperial, that would be 66 feet wide for a collector street to be built. So we currently are hemmed in right now by private property owners on both sides, so we are not able to, we don't have the width right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I entertain the motion to close the public hearing?
Just one to administration through the chair. The small stub of Aberdeen Avenue that comes off of 34th Street. The pictures that Mr. Smith, pardon me, provided, and I know from my own experience, there's a very narrow width of asphalt. How wide exactly is that right-of-way? Do you know how much right-of-way there actually is? Is it all being used for asphalt surface, or is there more there?
Give us a moment. We just measuring on our mapping. The right-of-way itself, is about 70 to 73 feet, which is about 22 meters. So, through the chair to Commissioner Measure.
So then what we're seeing there constructed, the sidewalk, the asphalted surface, and the ditch on the south side, that's all contained within that, or do we know that? Like, I'm looking at Lakeview Drive.
Yep.
And wondering, is there more width to make that align better?
Aberdeen, the roadway itself is a little bit wider, closer to Durham Drive. So so right now it looks like it's about, that south curb is about 3 meters from the south side of the right-of-way. So from a neighbor's property line right now. So about 10 feet, 10, 11 feet. So the larger deciduous trees are within the city right-of-way. There's a row of coniferous trees further east. Those appear to be within private property.
So would it be fair to speculate that the widened asphalt surface at Marquee, or Durham, pardon me,
Yep.
is approximately the width that should be or could be running all the way to 34th Street?
It could. Most likely what happened here through the chair to Commissioner Measure is that that road, that widened part of Aberdeen Avenue coincides with the rear property line of the west side of Durham Drive properties there. So typically what happens is that when a developer comes in to build a new area, they are required to build streets up to our current standards. So the city would have required, likely in this case, to build that section of Aberdeen to the proper width, but they only developed up to where they owned the land for development. West of that, those properties are actually, they're extra deep properties fronting 34th Street, those residential properties, and none of them have come forward for development yet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through the chair. If I may provide more context for the public too, my name is Sam Van Heusen. I'm the traffic and transportation planner assisting Mr. Mock with some of the technical answers here. The city does recognize that there are some alignment challenges with Aberdeen Avenue at that connection there at 34th Street. Primarily, if you're heading straight on Lakeview Drive coming towards 34th Street, there isn't sufficient alignment for you to not comfortably, but like within a good alignment, go straight through onto Aberdeen. And particularly, I believe that I certainly wasn't with the city when Aberdeen was constructed, but if I'm going to make a guess as to why it wasn't extended, is because the city didn't want to encourage shortcutting through Aberdeen and Durham Drive, much like we see today. That being said, that doesn't preclude the fact that shortcutting does exist. It just makes it a little bit more difficult for Lakeview Drive residents to do so. So certainly we can take a look at whether or not we need to fix the alignment at Aberdeen and make it wide like it is further into the subdivision, or even reduce some of the width to provide some traffic calming. But again, these considerations are likely outside of the scope of the Southwest Secondary Plan amendments before you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Then I will entertain a motion regarding closing the public hearing. Mr. Major?
That the public hearing for bylaw 7310 to amend secondary plan bylaw number 7080 Southwest Brandon secondary plan be concluded.
Seconder? Hobson? Normally we would just call the question very quickly, but by way of discussion, I just wanted to address those of you who've come out and the people who are watching online and those who have written letters. Thank you very much for your contributions. We do appreciate it. And this is not, of course, as I was trying to raise through my question, an end to this discussion. However, I also wanted to just remind in a way to our commissioners that we are charged with considering the updates as presented. And so things like what could we do with Aberdeen Avenue aren't really as part of the issues for which we should be then deciding on. So with that, I'd call the question, should we close the public hearing? All those in favor? Great, thank you. So now I would take a...
Kate didn't
Oh,
vote.
I'm sorry.
Oh, she's voted now.
Thank
in
you.
favor.
Excellent. Thank you for keeping my pace. I would entertain a motion, including potentially from Commissioner Hill, regarding the recommendation to the City Council. Commissioner Major?
That the Planning Commission recommends City Council approve bylaw number 7310 to amend the Southwest Brandon secondary plan bylaw number 7080.
And a seconder? Commissioner Anderson? Commissioner Major, do you want to speak to the...
Well, yeah, this obviously is a trying situation for everyone. I appreciate the representation from both sides. I appreciate the information from administration. As presented, this is what we had to work with. It seems as though the Durham Drive came out of this, and how that will be dealt with in the future, I'm not sure, but I'm sure it will be dealt with.
Commissioner Hill, do you have...
There obviously are issues in the neighborhood, traffic, roads, stop signs, whatever, but I think maybe if a ward meeting and discuss issues and develop a plan and then come to City Council with a plan and see where that goes. That's just my opinion, and that's where I'm at.
Commissioner Hobson, do you have...
I would probably just agree with Anderson where this needs to go a bit more.
Thank you. And myself, I came into this having read, of course, the reports and the letters, first wanting to know that the question that I asked administration: will this change to the Southwest Plan reduce or close off future options? And I don't see that these changes that we're recommending will reduce any future options, nor do I see these specific changes that we're tasked with considering actually making the Durham Road concerns worse. I understand that they're a problem, and I agree that they're a problem. These changes to the wording of green space and I do not see as being a large contributor. And one of the presenters did also say that they recognize that we all end up driving through somebody else's neighborhood to get wherever we're going from our home to our workplace. I'm not saying that it's ideal that people are going down Durham Drive at the moment, but at the same time, I have to think about what's equitable across the city. And so in that case, I'm not seeing that the Durham Drive situation is so extraordinarily unlike what happens in other parts of the neighborhoods that I see it derailing this current proposal. So with that, and Commissioner Kate Hill, does she have a comment?
Commissioner Hill mirrors what Commissioner Masher said.
All right, thank you very much. So with that, I call the question regarding the recommendation to council. All those in favor? And Commissioner Hill? So that's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item B under the public hearings, which is the rezoning and subdivision of 2210 Maryland Avenue. Administration, thank you. Certainly, yeah.
Change the presentation, and also in case there are some people in the audience who wish to step away.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming out.
Okay, and one more thing before I present, I want to confirm that the applicant is online with us already. Thank you, Amber. All right, without further ado, then we will start with the presentation. Thank you. So yes, Mr. Chair, the second and final item for public hearings tonight is 2210 Maryland Avenue for rezoning and subdivision. So this property is in the south central part of the city, west of 18th Street and south of Maryland Avenue. And if we zoom in more closely, it is on the south side of Maryland Avenue between 20th and 26th Streets, as you can see in the yellow box there. It is the former alternative landscaping site before they shut down operations in about 2013, 2014 here in the city. That property is about 12 acres in size right now. So here's a photo of that site. It's a panorama shot, so that's why Maryland Avenue looks a little wonky. I caution you, but it is taken on the north side of the street. So west is to your right, east is to your left. And that has a very wide site, relatively speaking. Taking some regular photos, this is the northeast corner of the site. So that is where the old Alternative Landscaping's office building is located there. There is still a fenced compound on that side. So that side is about 2 acres in area, and that side will still be retained by the current property owner. It's the other side to the west and south of this corner that's going to be proposed for a school, and that's about 10 acres in size. This is the western edge of the site, where a future public reserve we are recommending that will go along the west side with an active transportation trail coming from Maryland Avenue, where I'm standing at in this picture, to take this picture, southwards to Brentwood Mobile Home Park, which you will see in the distance. That is the newer addition there. And these are just some pictures of some of the properties in the surrounding area. So we do have low-density residential on the north side of Maryland Avenue, as you see in the picture on the left. We do have the community gardens to the northwest on Brandon School Division's lands, as you can see in the picture in the upper right, and lands further available for future development, as you can see in the picture to the lower right. That's on Maryland Avenue facing southwest towards 26th Street intersection. So I did allude to that was a rezoning and subdivision. This presentation is a little bit different in that we are dealing with, the original request was for a rezoning from development reserve to educational, institutional, and commercial general, as well as a subdivision to create one lot. Based on a review by the city and discussions with the applicant, we have come to an agreement to amend this request so that the rezoning is going from development reserve zone to educational, institutional, and parks and recreation zone. And for the subdivision, it's to create, for some reason that got cut down, unfortunately. It's to create one lot, a public road, and public reserve. The intent is to allow for the development of a new K-12 school. And again, just to clarify, this is to be run by DSFM, which is short for District Scolaire Franco-Manitobain. It's the Francophone school district. This is not a Brandon School Division project. And that also explains why we're proposing another school in this area, even though we have other school sites designated under the Southwest Brandon Secondary Plan. So this is the original site plan that's shown, just demonstrating how a school could fit here. So the areas in color is that 10 acres that I mentioned earlier, and the northeast corner is the 2 acres that would have been retained by the current property owner. Based on our discussions and review, we have come to an agreement to revise it to as follows. So the northeast corner will not be rezoned to commercial general. It will stay with the current zone, the development reserve zone. There will be a 4-meter right-of-way dedication along the northern edge. So that will be incorporated into the Maryland Avenue right-of-way. This will allow for construction of a sidewalk on the south side of the street in front of the school site itself. And I clarify, it's just a school site. It's not going to be in front of the 2 acres right now because they're not proposing development at this time. The third significant change you see here is a 15-meter wide public reserve dedication to the west of this site. So that is the one that's going to be zoned PR Parks and Recreation. And that will link Maryland Avenue to the Brentwood Mobile Home Park. This is in keeping with the secondary plan, which calls for a pedestrian connection from Brentwood north to Maryland. Just to save time, I will skip through the drier aspects of the presentation, but I will mention actually with respect to Policy 1221 of the development plan, the reason why we came to an agreement to amend the proposal is dealing with infrastructure, is dealing with sanitary sewer services, or the limitations of it right now. So currently there's only water service along Maryland Avenue, but the closest sanitary sewer line is at 20th Street, further east. The latest data we have shows that 20th Street sanitary sewer main has limited capacity remaining. The applicant provided numbers in terms of students and staff for the proposed school, which I forget to mention, also includes a possible daycare facility. So based on the numbers, we were able to calculate if there was still sufficient capacity in the 20th Street sanitary sewer. Good news is, yes, there still was. They just need to extend the sewer line to the school site to connect to 20th Street. On the other hand, though, rezoning of the residual land to the commercial general zone, we could not support that because it was too much of an unknown for us. There was no firm concept presented for the commercial site, and so that was too much of an unknown for us. Another policy in the development plan requires new developments to connect to water and sanitary services at the time of development, but we as a city did not have the confidence that there was remaining capacity available, and we did not want to lead anyone wanting to develop that site to erroneously believe that the proposed commercial portion will be shovel ready. So that is why it is staying as DR development reserve for now. We've already talked about the secondary plan previously, so I think we can skip that. I've already mentioned that we will require green space dedications. Just to further clarify with respect to the DR zone, normally a DR zone requires a larger parcel. However, with just 2 acres remaining, on the surface it appears it does not comply. However, it is a residual parcel, and so we deem that as a lawful non-conforming situation. So a variance is not required for the property owner to deal with that. And this is also consistent with how we're dealing with the related subdivision application. The Brandon Land Titles Office, also known as TerraNet Manitoba, they consider the northeast portion as a residual parcel. So in keeping with that, that is a lawful non-conforming situation. A development agreement will be required for this project. Key conditions in it include the construction of that trail on the west side of the site towards the Brentwood Mobile Home Park from Maryland Avenue. A traffic impact study is required as well, as this is a new development. A crosswalk across Maryland Avenue, the final location to be determined by that traffic impact study, and development charges. I alluded to this earlier in the previous public hearing. Any necessary improvements the traffic impact study recommends, the developer will have to make those upgrades at their cost. Crosswalk will also be at the developer's cost as well. And then in terms of other conditions related to the subdivision, there's outstanding property taxes that need to be taken care of as well. The applicant mailed out to nearby property owners in May of earlier this year. 2 property owners raised concerns during the applicant's public outreach efforts, including the future of the existing on-site trees as well as the timing of the project. And as of closing today, we did not receive any correspondences from the public. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for administration on this? Commissioner Anderson?
Yeah, through the chair. Andrew, when you were talking about the water and sewer, that there is capacity there. Now, we've had other developments want to go in that area or extend or whatever, and we've said no because of we don't have the capacity. Now, with the school coming in, which is good, is that going to curtail other developments because we're taking up the flow?
Through the chair to Commissioner Anderson, short answer is no. The other developments that we've already approved, their inputs, their connections to the existing sanitary sewer system are at different places, and it's different parts of the network have different capacity limitations. That's the best way that I can put it. Another factor is also, even let's say, for example, 20th Street had sufficient capacity for a whole bunch more development. The design of sewer pipes has to be such that you have to angle it consistently a certain way, and you reach a point where it becomes too shallow. So 20th Street was the closest one, and fortunately, it just worked out that it just had enough capacity, and it was the right depth that it could support the school's development.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Hill.
Commissioner Hill, through the chair, would ask Mr. Mock, with the mention of the current restraints on the existing sewers, does that mean that should the school one day want to expand, would it not be able to do that?
Through the chair to Commissioner Hill, at this point, the applicant has not indicated or and the applicant can confirm, but the information that they've provided us did not indicate any potential for expansions yet. But if future additions are required, most likely we will require them to provide us an updated servicing study to confirm that we still have capacity for them. Who knows that when that expansion may occur? If it does, other circumstances may change. For example, we as a city are constantly upgrading our sewer network system as well. So if the addition is required down the road, there may be a possibility that we may have made sufficient improvements that capacity is no longer an issue, so. But basically, yes, we will need further information from them for us to verify that there's still capacity.
That's all that Commissioner Hill wanted to know.
Commissioner Major?
Through the chair to Mr. Mock, I'm just curious, does the east side of this parcel, how far is it away from 20th Street? Do you know approximately?
Yeah, there's a few houses on the north side of Maryland Avenue. I don't have the exact measurement, and then I don't have my laptop right in front of me, so I can't.
But it is relatively close, though?
It is relatively
yeah,
close.
Okay, that's fine.
86 meters approximately.
All right, thank you.
I'm looking at the map as well. It looks like about 5 houses, like distance.
Okay.
Thank you. No other questions? Great. Does the applicant wish to make some presentation? Oh, there we go. Hello. Bonjour.
Hi there.
Go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Sure. Can you just state your name for our records?
Absolutely. My name's Andre Friesen, and I'm a planner with Landmark Planning and Design, representing the Division Scolaire Franco-Manitobaine.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Perfect. I'm just going to try sharing my screen here. I do have a presentation ready to go. I'm more familiar with the Zoom platform, so my apologies if it takes a second to get everything running here, but I am going to share my screen. And is that showing up for everyone?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to the Commission this evening. I really appreciate it, and I wanted to give a big thanks to the City of Brandon administration for their insight and assistance bringing both of these applications forward. So as mentioned, my name is Andre Friesen. I'm a planner with Landmark Planning and Design, and my client is the school division, and they're looking to establish a new school in the City of Brandon, as you're already aware. So there's a couple different things that have to occur to establish that school site. And the two that we're going to be discussing tonight are obviously the subdivision and the rezoning. And I'll go through my brief presentation right now. So Mr. Mock has covered this in depth already, but the subject property is surrounded by a variety of different land uses, residential to the north, as well as some vacant land that's been earmarked for another school site. To the south is the Brentwood Mobile Home Park. To the east, there's an agricultural machinery, an implement dealer, including outdoor vehicle storage. And then to the west, there's undeveloped land. So here we see the subdivision application map. And the DFSM would like to purchase 10 acres of the 12 acres for a new school, as is shown here with the hashed red line. So the 10-acre portion is currently undeveloped and is largely open space at the moment. And then the residual will basically remain as is. It's currently fenced, and it's being used as the office for the Mazer Group's construction group. So no change is proposed there. Mr. Mock has already shown the site plan. This is a conceptual site plan that's been designed to illustrate how a school and associated amenities could be configured on the proposed 10-acre parcel. So just as an FYI for the Commission, 10 acres is typically the recommended site area for a modern school facility. It's this exact amount of land that's been associated with establishing schools elsewhere in the province of Manitoba. So this one's exactly where it should be in terms of a school size related to the parcel. So as shown on the conceptual plan, the subject property can accommodate the proposed school, childcare facility, and then I know there was a question about this already about a potential expansion, but the site itself can definitely accommodate it. And as Mr. Mock already mentioned, there would likely have to be further engineering studies to confirm that the capacities are there. But for the school division right now, to suit their purposes, they do have room for growth, but they definitely want to get opposed, and that'll be sufficient for the foreseeable future. We've already included the multi-use plan on the west side, pathway on the west side of the plan there. So that's already been contemplated. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is that it's important to note that the site plan will be refined through a detailed design process that will involve more than just planners, engineers, architects, to actually design the school. Manitoba Education has a process that's a little bit different than the land use approval process in terms of how they allocate funds. And before provincial funding can be allocated for the school division actually has to own the land and have the land zoned appropriately to accommodate the use. So that's what we're looking to accomplish today. Once that has been accomplished, then the school division will be eligible for additional funding to go into the detailed design portion of the project and actually designing the structures that would site and refining the site plan a little bit further. But right now it has been designed to meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So I just wanted to bring that to light. Mr. Mock did mention that we did undertake some public engagement and notification. Letters informing neighbors were sent to everyone within a 100-meter circulation area of the subject property. As already mentioned, there were two responses that were received. A neighbor to the north of the subject property called and asked about the existing tree stand on the property and was wondering if it was going to be kept. The best answer I can give right now, because we aren't at a detailed design, is that every effort will be made to keep existing trees. Those trees have definitely been there for a while, and if there is a way of keeping them, that will be sent over to the architects and the engineers as the site is refined further. The other response that I got was from the property owner to the west, and they just had some questions about the proposed land use and what the implications might be. I should also mention that the public hearing posters were installed on the subject property on August 26th, which fulfills the posting requirements for this hearing today. This has all been covered, but I just wanted to confirm compliance with the City of Brandon's planning regulation and policy. The overarching development plan designates the land as commercial. However, planning authority goes down to the next level in the planning hierarchy, down to the secondary plan. So I'm just going to flip to that one quickly. In the secondary plan, these lands are designated as low density residential, and a school would be an appropriate use within that designation. And then, of course, there are some mapping amendments, minor mapping amendments associated with the secondary plan that have already been covered under bylaw 7310, addressing just some housekeeping issues about actually noting the school on the land use maps within the plan. In terms of compliance with the zoning bylaw, again, the property is currently zoned DR Development Reserve, so that's the entire 12 acres right now. The proposed zoning will be, for the 10-acre school site, will be the EI Educational and Institutional Zone, and then as Mr. Mock already mentioned, the remaining 2-acre residual portion will just remain as DR Development Reserve. This map shows how that would play out. The existing site, 2-acre site, would remain as DR, and then of course the proposed EI zone would go over the rest, and other schools within the City of Brandon are held under this zone, so it is the appropriate zone for school use. Mr. Mock did go over the comments from the circulation. Basically, they're pretty standard. No concerns on our end. These are all things that would have to happen, that are necessary to happen just for good planning for a school site. So no comments on our end there. We concur with the recommendations. So to summarize and conclude, the subdivision and rezoning generally comply with the City of Brandon's planning framework, of course taking into account the zoning bylaw amendment that has been proposed today, as well as the secondary plan amendment that was proposed earlier. The proposed school would complement adjacent uses and would not create any undesirable land use conflicts. It's something that benefits a neighborhood. It's a supplementary use that should be adjacent to residential uses, which it is. It's actually a really exciting opportunity. The province doesn't provide funding for too many new schools. This is something that doesn't happen very often. I know there has been funding allocated for a couple over the past year, but this is a pretty neat opportunity, and we're happy to be involved with this project. And again, we agree with the comments received during the formal circulation of the application. So that concludes my brief presentation. Really thank you for the opportunity to present to the Commission today. And again, thanks to the City of Brandon administration for moving these applications forward. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant at this point?
No questions from Kate.
And I'm not sure if this is a question for you or for administration, but on the conceptual, there's a water feature or sort of drainage along the east side. We just dealt with that, as I recall, with Maryland Park School, that some of that drainage actually needed to be retained. Is that the case with that conceptual? Or did you show the water feature there just so some blue showed up, or was it actually required for drainage in the site?
Yeah, it's my understanding that there was some drainage related features shown in the secondary plan, so we wanted to note that, of course, that's a consideration that we would be looking at. Whether or not it's actual water storage or a dry pond, that will be determined through a detailed engineering analysis that we have to work with the city on. But more so for the conceptual plan, we just wanted to demonstrate that the site is large enough to retain whatever water needs to be held on site temporarily, but yeah, it's just more so an indicator to show the site is suitable and there is room for water storage if needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a second applicant to speak? No, you don't.
I'm the owner.
Okay.
And if there's any questions, I quickly have just a few comments if I may.
Certainly, we can move on to the portion where we ask for, if there are no more further questions for the applicant per se. Yeah, feel free to come and address either, I suppose, in favor, I would hope.
Thank you, Chair.
Just state your name again for the...
Good evening, Commission members. I'm Bob Mazer. I'm the owner of the property that is being suggested to pass to the French school. I just want to add a couple things. One is that we will be retaining the 2 acres, and we have all the 15 acres all the way to 18th Street from there. So there's a package of 27 acres that Patty and I own at this moment. So it's not a matter of you won't be faced with me coming back a year from now and saying we want to develop this 2 acres. That's why we agreed to the DR, because probably the 2 acres will be, if it's going to be developed at any time, it will be developed with the other 15 acres, so 17-acre parcel. Just on the water retention, there is no water retention there. I don't know exactly what that's about. It all goes to 18th Street and handles it very well through the last go-around with the sewer and water application at 18th Street. So it's a piece of land that is really well situated for this use, and you won't have me coming back and saying, oh, could we do this with this 2 acres? That's not what we're doing here. Basically, that's part of the 17 acres. So
thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Do we have anyone online or by text or anything that might be?
Nope.
All right. And does Commissioner Hill have any? I haven't asked out yet. She seems to be still.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, then I believe we're at this point, since we have no one else to offer comment, to entertain the motion for closing the public hearing for both the rezoning and subdivision application. Commissioner Anderson. Oh, sorry.
I can do that. That the combined public hearing for bylaw number 7311 to rezone part of 2110 Maryland Avenue and subdivision application 4500 21715 be concluded.
So Commissioner Hobson, second that is.
2210, right?
2210.
Yeah, 2210. Did I not say that?
I thought you said 2110.
Oh, I could have said that, yeah.
We don't want to rezone somebody else's property. That would be awkward.
That wouldn't look very good, would it?
Great, so then call the question to close the public hearing portion. All those in favor?
And Kate is in favor as well.
Great, so it's unanimous. All right, now I'll entertain the question for I'd like to open the motion for the proposal. And I just wanted, this is the version we have in front of us is all the current correct version of all the conditions. All right, perfect.
For the rezone, yeah.
Yeah. Commissioners, someone?
Yeah, okay, so I'm doing number 2, right?
Number 2, yes.
Okay. That the Planning Commission recommends City Council approve bylaw number 7311 from development reserve to educational and institutional and open space subject to the following conditions. And there's 1 and 2, and in 2 there's A to K conditions. I'm not going to read those out.
Can I,
Mr. Chair, if I may interject?
the rezone part of 2210?
Part of 2210, yes, but also there's a typo there we missed that part. It should not say open space, it should be Parks and Recreation Zone, PR,
Okay.
which is reflected in condition 1. But, yeah, we missed that. Our apologies.
Okay. Have you guys got that?
Yeah, so Amber, can you read the motion, the correct motion back then as?
Sure. That the Planning Commission recommends City Council approve bylaw number 7311 to rezone part of 2210 Maryland Avenue from development reserved to educational and institutional and parks and recreation zones, subject to the following conditions. 1, the PR zone shall coincide with the proposed public reserve dedication under subdivision application 4500-21-715 along the west side of the site, and the owner or successor entering into a development agreement with the City of Brandon with the following conditions, A through to J. Or K.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Great. Commissioner Anderson, do you wish to speak to that motion?
I've got no issues with this, rezoning it. I think it's wonderful. We're getting the new school in that area. That's good. It's a good thing.
Commissioner Hobson? She's still right. Yeah, no, and I agree, and I would thank the current owner also for their participation in this and for seeing how we can move this forward, and to Mr. Friesen as well for the presentation. All right, I would now call the question then. All those in favor?
It is in favor as well.
Yes, so that's all 5 of us. And then finally, I would entertain the motion regarding the subdivision application portion. Commissioner Hobson?
That the Planning Commission recommends City Council approve the application to subdivide 2210 Maryland Avenue to create 1 lot, public road, public reserve, and the educational institutional public reserve and development zone, subject to the following conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you. A seconder? Commissioner Major? Commissioners, do you want to speak to that? We'll go part and parcel together, but
It goes together.
Yeah.
I agree. And again, with the understanding that development reserve is a legal pre-existing use as a residual, that's very good. All right, all those in favor of the, and Commissioner Hill
Is in favor as well.
So that's all 5. Excellent. So we will see those go forward to council for their final approval. Thank you. On the agenda then, we just move on to our general business.